you get some weird and wonderful cars. But mainly that's why we like our cars. But you also get some very odd and interesting engine combinations with those cars. Some big cars with small engines, some small cars with obnoxiously large engines which are quite useless, some engines which are very tedious, some engines which are just way too complicated. But when it comes to odd engines, I wrote down 6 cars that I feel have some of the weirdest engine combinations in cars these days. These are new, old, used, whatever, classic cars, which I wanted to bring to your attention because they are quite interesting and not often heard about. But before we start off, welcome to On the Overrun, episode 6, where we talk about some odd engine combos in quite cool cars. But let's kick off with the Koenigsegg Gemera, as I said. So this car is not yet launched, it's not yet out, but Koenigsegg plans to probably release it in the next 2 years. What makes this car so interesting is the fact that it has 4 seats, basically a hypercar, but even more is the engine, the tiny, friendly giant as they call it. It's basically a mid-engine car with a 2-liter, 3-cylinder, bi-turbo engine, which has no camshaft. Your camshaft basically helps with exhaust and cylinder valves opening and closing. But this system is a free valve system, meaning it closes and opens the valve separately and on variable timing whenever the engine or the ECU feels it's most fitting. But a 2-liter, 3-cylinder and a bi-turbo is not something you hear often. Usually it's a 2-cylinder 4 or maybe a 1.5 3-cylinder. But the fact that it is a bi-turbo 2 is just a very weird combo, but that's just what Koenigsegg does. Christian or Koenigsegg, the owner, just dreams up an engine and then suddenly puts it in a car, and guess what? It works actually. This engine, not only for its configuration, is interesting because it delivers 447 kilowatt from a 2-liter 3-cylinder. 447 kilowatt. There are V8s from 4-liter V8s from Mercedes and from BMW that don't even deliver this kind of power. 600 Newton meters, but that is not the end of it. That's only the engine. There's also 3 electric motors, 2 being on the rear axle, on the rear wheels, and also 1 front mounted. The 2 rear, basically the 2 rear electric engines, and then the front electric engine or motor, bring the power output up to 1,265 kilowatt, which is basically 1,700 horsepower. But the torque figure, which torque is the thing that makes you feel that whoa, back in your seat kind of thing when you drive a car. The torque figure is an unbelievable 3,500 Newton meters of torque. Now, to put this into perspective, the Bugatti Chiron, which is one of the fastest production cars on the road, only has 1,120 kilowatts, only 1,500 horsepower. But the torque figure is only 1,600 compared to 3,500. How the car is going to put that power on the road, I don't know, but the fact that it has 4 seats just makes it a beauty of a car. Very interesting. Also, it has ISOFIX, meaning you can put your baby seat in it. Yeah, Koenigsegg, what are you doing? Next car is the 2009 Audi Q7. Now, what makes this Q7 interesting, this is a big SUV, weighs about 2,600 kilograms. But Audi decided, no, of course we want to make it powerful because it's a big car, but we still want to make it fuel efficient, Not all about performance is an SUV, let's be honest, it's not going to track the Simbola Hill climb in a record-breaking time. So the engine they placed in it is a 6-liter V12 turbo diesel. Now, 6-liter V12, that's common, but a turbo diesel, that just doesn't make sense. Usually you put a V12 in a car for performance reasons and for speed. And, okay, this thing is not slow from 0 to 100. It's about 4.6 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. But in TDI, a turbo diesel, which is usually used for fuel efficiency, is now put in a V12. Or put together with a V12, rather, which is quite peculiar. But, as I said, it brought some speed along. And it has a red line of about 4,500 because your torque or your power figures for your power graphs rather for your diesel engines is much lower, much less steep than petrol. So you don't get a lot of power in high revs. That's why the red line is so low. Usually that also leads to shorter gear ratios. But in any case, 6-liter V12 turbo diesel. Interesting. Also interesting. In that era, about 2010, 2011, 2012, Audi also had a Le Mans racing car with a V10 turbo diesel. Some say it was derived from that engine, but I think that is wishful thinking. Next up is the Connaught Type D. So the Connaught Type D is also a car designed about 10 years ago. The designer of this car was the head of engines, if I'm right, of Jaguar Land Rover in that time, and he decided, no, I want to veer off into my own direction and build a car of my dreams, basically. So the Connaught Type D, not a production car yet. There is a few chassis rolling around, but the company went bankrupt a few years ago. But this car is a 2-liter, wait for it, V10 hybrid. Supercharged V10 hybrid, nonetheless, which makes it quite interesting. A 2-liter, basically, your 2-liter, your 5-liter, whatever, that is your displacement, and that basically just indicates the the breadth of the bore in the cylinder heads. This means this is a very, very small engine block. This is a very narrow angle V10 with the same cylinder head over. Usually you have 2 cylinder heads, but with the same cylinder head, like an inline engine. But it's a 22.5 degree angle, meaning it's extremely narrow angled, meaning it revs very high. Similar type of engine is the VR6 from the Golf 5 and the Golf 4 R32. Yes, R32. But anyway, 2-liter V10 supercharged and a hybrid. They actually wanted to make it quite a fuel efficient package. Also, in terms of power efficiency, it has a V10. It's going to make quite a noise, and it's also going to go places quite quickly. But a very, very small engine block. Usually, as I said, it's a narrow angle, 22.5 degrees. Usually a V10 is about 72 degrees, like your 5 liters from the Lexus LFA and such. But quite an interesting engine combo. This car is not yet released. They are still trying to finish it and build it. I don't know if the company is going to go bankrupt again, but at least one rolling chassis will be built, hopefully. And that'll be quite cool to see. I'm really interested in hearing how this car sounds on the road, because V10 sound amazing. Just think of the Carrera GT. But having a 2-liter makes it a bit of a different package. So our next car is the Volkswagen XL1. No, this is not a Volkswagen Polo, and you have also not heard of this Volkswagen in your life before. So the Volkswagen XL1 is actually not really experimental prototype, but it was rather a car they used to further their technology and experience in fuel efficiency. So this car was released, and it was the most fuel efficient car, it's basically still ever. It achieved a run of 300 miles per gallon. That is less than 1 liter. That's basically 0.78 liters per 100 kilometers. Your Polo probably does about 6 to 7, depending on the year model, liters per 100 kilometers. This thing does 0.78, but it has an unbelievably small engine, 0.8 liters or 800 cc, 2-cylinder turbo diesel, and a hybrid. It also has electrical motors in it to just add some more power. It has a massive, jaw-dropping 20 kilowatts and 140 newton meters of torque. The torque is basically all that's needed to basically make it drive. It will do the speed limit, and that is all it has to do. You probably never have to stop at a petrol station also. But quite an old car, probably 7 or 8 years old, but very interesting. Very cool that they made it. I recently saw one on YouTube. Mr. JWW bought one. That's why I brought it up. But as I said earlier, Volkswagen actually designed this at a loss. So they sold it and they still made a loss. But the knowledge and the technology advancements they made, and the knowledge again, technology advancements they made, basically made it worth it to implement it in the cars further along the road. The next car is also quite a modern SUV, but it's from Volvo, straight from Sweden. Volvo has improved their cars by a massive margin the past couple of years, and I'm truly intrigued by the type of engine layouts they used. So the Volvo XC90, which is the largest SUV, the T8 specification or model rather, which is the sportiest model in the range, if you want to call it that, houses a 2-liter supercharged and turbocharged engine, 4-cylinder. Now this only powers the front wheels, and if I'm right, it has a 7 or 8 speed automatic, but this only powers the front wheels. There's also electric motor at the back, which produces about 65 kilowatt, which only powers the back wheels. So in electric, which it does probably something like 100 kilometers of range, it's a rear-wheel drive car, SUV, electric, but usually it's just internal combustion engine, front-wheel drive. Very interesting engine layout. There is no connection between the front and rear engines or motors, which is cool, but it works. But basically, the 2-liter supercharged, turbocharged engine, it doesn't make for the best of sound. It's not necessarily the most exciting of drives, but very efficient in terms of fuel, but also very capable, very powerful. Which makes it quite a cool car. If I had to choose an SUV today to buy, it would probably be in my top 3, I'd say. So the last car is actually a Lambo engineer designed car. I think it's someone Zampoli, I'm probably wrong, or mispronouncing it. But this car is the Cizeta V16T. So the Cizeta is based on a Lamborghini Diablo, which causes the similar looks. But it's also designed by a Lamborghini engineer, as I said. But this car's engine is also quite interesting. Similar to old Lamborghinis, which had transverse, meaning the engine basically didn't sit parallel, it sat 90 degrees to where the front was facing. But this had a transverse 16-cylinder or V16. Now this was not one block. This was one block, but it was 2 V8s basically attached together with separate camshafts, with separate timing chains, part of one block. So yeah, it produced quite a lot of power, about 400 kilowatt, 540 newton meters of torque. So it was a cool engine, sounded very cool. Not the most advanced of designs or most clever designs. It wasn't the Germans who designed it. It was passionate Italians. But it made for quite a cool proposition. But still, the V16, having 2 V8s, still making a 16-cylinder. Hey, I mean, the only other car I know of that has 16-cylinder is a Bugatti, the Chiron or the Veyron. So probably sounded awesome. I, of course, haven't heard one. You probably won't see one on the road, but this is known for its odd engine combination. Now, there may be other few cars who also, you may think, this thing also has quite a weird odd engine combination. So comment down below. Social media links and everything is also down below. Please engage with us. If you'd like to send us email, telling me about, I don't know, shaving my beard or bring Luke back or anything, please do so. We'd love to connect with you also. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you got immersed a bit more into the odd and weird and peculiar parts of the car industry. But I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a good one. And just remember, loving cars is cheaper than drugs. Cheers.